So let's have a look at Wednesday, the 5th of August, then 2026. It's an interesting day because on the surface, it doesn't really look like there's much going on. As you can see on the 5th, we've got the first aspect is the moon making a sextile to the North Node, followed by the moon going into Taurus, and then the moon is making three positions, a conjunction with Chiron, followed by a square with Pluto, and then finally a square with Jupiter. Now, on the surface, it doesn't seem to look like much, but I actually think what's going on is picking up on a much older story. And I want to take you back on a bit of a journey, back to what was going on early May. In the first week in May, in fact, on the 4th of May, Pluto started to go into a square with Chiron. Now, it wouldn't be exact. In fact, it hasn't been exact. They're just resting in a square right now. So Pluto here, Chiron here. At the moment, they're both going back retrograde. Pluto staying in Aquarius. Chiron's going back into Aries, and then we'll come forwards into Taurus. Now, between May 2026, right the way through to 2032, Pluto and Chiron are going to be in a square more or less. And between 2028 and 2030, they're going to make 5 exact squares. So this is just a long-term picture, but it started in earnest on the 4th of May. And so that's important. That's when a current situation that we're already in is coming up. Now, Pluto is showing where we're looking for control. It's also showing where there's collective control that we are tuning into. I've mentioned quite a few times in videos that Pluto, especially in Aquarius, is bringing up something I would say to do with social shame and social shame situations, maybe because of very hard belief systems and ideas where we're really wanting to keep our power and our control and sense the crisis that could happen if we don't maintain control over something. And then Chiron is really speaking of our vulnerability. And so it's almost like because we feel vulnerable, we're seeking control. But the moment we seek control, we realize where we have no control and we feel more vulnerable again. So there's this very interesting little dance which is going on. So that started in the first week in May, and it's still persisting. And of course, the moon's not actually necessarily changing anything, but the moon is going to be shining some light on this a little bit, reflected light. So it's going to give us something to reflect on. Now, on the 8th of May, we also had Jupiter apply into a square with Chiron. Now, with Jupiter, we've got this desire for expansion and beliefs. And with Chiron, again, it's really showing us where we've got sensitivities and vulnerabilities, in particular, deep-seated vulnerabilities. And so here, Jupiter's need to be free, to be philosophical, to expand our belief systems is absolutely creating a sense of vulnerability. So it feels like there's two sides to you. You know, maybe there's this side that's just like, oh my God, I just absolutely want to break through beyond this. I really feel the tension of it. And so Jupiter's really trying to rush you into some kind of healing. And Chiron is there saying, but this feels very vulnerable. And so we've had that also going on in May. And so it's interesting because at the one hand, we've got Pluto in Aquarius. And at the other hand, we had Jupiter, first of all, in Cancer, now in Leo, but in opposition to Pluto. So Pluto's wanting control and crisis management. You know, Pluto wants to keep everything together, make sure it's all calm and neat and tidy and everything, and that it can be controlled and nothing can escape the control. And then Jupiter is breaking free. Now, obviously, I've mentioned this quite a lot in terms of the boat or the basket, however you want to call it. But the planets with Pluto, with Neptune, with Uranus and with Jupiter, they've all been working, and Jupiter, I think, is breaking free from the power control. That's how I see it so clearly. And so in our attempts to break free of anything that feels like it's controlling us, and also the idea of social shame, we're also experiencing deep-seated vulnerabilities. It's bringing stuff up. And so on Wednesday, I think as the moon is getting closer and closer to Chiron, it's getting closer into that square to Pluto, it's also getting closer to that square to Jupiter. It's all been emphasized. We're being reminded of it. Now, I don't know what this means to you, but what I would say is underlying it to me is the dichotomy of change, like, and what happens when we're experiencing change. Like, we need change to be able to grow, and yet change can bring up a lot of anxiety. It can bring up a lot of vulnerabilities, because we realize we're not safe. And of course, Pluto straight away, he loves to hear, I don't feel safe, because then Pluto's like, come here, let me help you feel safe again. Here's some controls. There you go. Put a nice little boundary here. You're lovely and safe now. But are you free and safe to expand, or once you're in Pluto's grasp, are you trapped? And so as I look at this and ponder this more and more, I think we realize the trap of safety, that safety costs us something, and it costs us our freedom. And, I can absolutely see how that plays out in terms of global politics, and also local politics and family politics, and our own personal sense of politics, because we will often calm down that exploratory voice within us. The explorer, the great explorer. I mean, that's something that you see in kids, before they learn to fear, they get all confident and they get all excited, and they go and they make a mess of things in a beautiful way. I love it. They have these great big ideas, and they have no fear of failing, no fear of falling, no fear of anything. They just go headlong into their new challenge. And then we get a hurt, which is the Chiron. And depending on how we deal with the hurt, like, do we have a great parent around us that is saying, do you know what? It's okay. I've been there. I've fallen down a few times, but actually the whole process of this is helping you to grow, and you'll be able to do more, and it's going to be really exciting. And heck, life is amazing. Life is exactly what you want to put into it. Keep going. Don't give up. Or are you going to have a parent that says, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. What a stupid thing to do. This is what you need to do to stay safe. And then they put in controls. You're grounded, you're this, you're that, the other. And so you can see how all of these ideas on safety versus exploration and growth play in our psyche. And so the moon is often said to represent the psyche. So we have literally got this playing out for us. And you might find that if you are experiencing a little bit of tension, you're wondering whether to take the bold road that might be a little bit dangerous and a bit exciting, or keep to the safe, controlled mechanisms. You might find that this is bringing up stuff from the childhood. Now, alongside that, before this actually happens, the moon makes a sextile to the North Node. And to me, that's asking us, like, what are you committing to? Because you might need to make a stand for something. Sextiles gift us, but they cost us. We have to put some hard work in. So I think leading into this, if you've put a little bit of work into something and you feel like, yeah, this is what I'm meant to do, I think you're more likely to get this nudge to expand a little more. And I think it could be quite a rush. However, if leading into this with the sextile to the North Node, if you think, not sure where I need to be, and you don't do anything about it, you're not answering that internal question, I think then as this big production comes in, this T-square between Pluto and Jupiter and Chiron comes in, you're more likely to think, do you know what? I've probably missed the boat. I probably don't need to do this. Oh, I'm probably too old or too fat or too whatever it is. Like, we can find all sorts, or too poor or too this. We can find all sorts of, explanations. And sorry, when I said too fat or, too slim or whatever, we often judge our actual bodies and our physical capability based on ideas that haven't even come from us. They've come from other people and other people's judgments. So, I really do, I'm not trying to body shame you, by the way, just to be really clear. So yeah, I think there's some old stuff that we can observe by seeing what's going on right now. And I think go with the new, go with the excitement, because Jupiter is leading us into some interesting places. And, Jupiter's in the same sign as the solar eclipse that's happening in just over a week's time. And so this solar eclipse is going to be quite fun. Jupiter's going to be nearby. To me, this is where the new change is coming in. It's coming from that sense of growth. FYI, also, in a few days' time, just before the actual solar eclipse on the 10th of August, Jupiter will officially be out of the square with Chiron. So the invitation to let go and boldly bumble forwards, without those vulnerabilities attached, that is coming in. We are about to really cut those strings of anxiety and worry and vulnerability that have kept us in place. And so I think actually we are breaking free of the fears that were coming up in May. They will still be playing out with the Pluto and Chiron thing. And to me, that's really talking about where social expectations and social shame are still playing into your decision-making process. And like I said at the start, Chiron and Pluto are going to be in a square on and off until 2032 when they finally separate. So yeah, social shame is likely to still be thrown on to us from all the different forms that they come from. And, they often start with our family, but they certainly don't stay there. We've got the media doing it to us. We've got celebrities doing it to us, sportsmen doing it to us, politicians doing it to us, the neighbors. Social shame is a huge thing. Stepping outside that can take a lot of guts. But Jupiter is saying, hey, if you've got the guts, I'm ready to step forwards. And so I think this is quite an exciting time, suffice to say. And then, of course, we'll be going into Thursday, in a couple of days' time. And that's on the 6th. We'll have Venus going into Libra. That is also going to be shifting us up. But I'll talk more about that tomorrow. So from me to you, have a beautiful day. Catch up real soon with another episode where we talk about the potentials of Venus going into Libra. Anyway, lots of love. Take care and catch you all soon. Bye for now.